Hey Ryan, how you doing?
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. I'm going to do a quick intro, then I'll jump in. Hey everybody, my name is Jim Farmer. I'm the festival director of Out on Film, Atlanta's LGBTQ Film Festival, and also an arts reporter for Georgia Voice here in Atlanta. I'm so happy to be talking to Ryan O'Connell, who is one of the writers, producers, and stars of the new Queer as Folk. Thanks so much, Ryan.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Nice to meet you today. So I
Yes.
was I was talking to some other people today, and we all seem to share the fact that as we were growing up, we watched Queer as Folk. And did you watch Queer as Folk as you were growing up?
Oh, honey, guilty as charged. I was a horny, closeted 12-year-old going to, Blockbuster Video with the sunglasses on, praying no one would notice me, and then watching it under the covers and just masturbating furiously.
That is hysterical. Why do you think now is an appropriate time for a new version?
Because it's been 22 years since the US version, and so much of what's defined queerness has been updated. And in terms of like conversations around inclusion and diversity have deepened and changed. So
Mhm.
we're able to make a show in 2022 that we never could have made in 1999. 1999 was beyond groundbreaking and amazing, but now we can really, really bring it into the forefront and include characters like mine that would never have been included in the original.
I love how diverse this new version is.
Yeah, but it doesn't feel like woke intersectional bingo.
Yeah,
Do you know what I
I
mean?
agree.
Yeah, it feels real and lived in. Like these are real fucking people, and they're not just like holograms of their identity and their marginalization. Do you know what I mean?
I also love how topical it is. I watched the first episode last week, and I didn't realize that it was going to be ending with a shooting. I mean, did you realize that was going to be part of this when you came aboard?
Yeah. I had read the pilot before I met
Yeah.
with Steven. And, I, of course, was nervous. It's a big swing, but I knew how Steven wanted to execute it. And also, what drew me to tackling that storyline was that unfortunately, we live in a culture that is saturated with tragedy, especially when it comes to shootings. And I feel like it's very easy to feel like these people who have lost their lives or survived, for them to just feel like a statistic.
Mhm.
I feel like rarely do I read stories about what has happened to the survivors. This was a really interesting way because Stephen has, talked to Pulse survivors and spent time with them. This was a really, really great way to get their perspective and figure out what happens after all
Exactly.
that. How do you put your life together? What does it look like? Like, how does it feel being a weird kind of celebrity for a couple of weeks and then having people move on? Like, how do you move your way through that? So I thought that was really, really interesting. And I think humanizes the people that survive such tragedies.
Exactly. Well, can you tell us a little bit about Julian?
Yeah, I mean, Julian, by golly, he is so fucking specific. He is an airplane loving, mall obsessed, Buffy stan, loves getting his dick sucked in bathroom stalls across New Orleans. He is a spiky little bitch, but of course, all of this is a defense mechanism. He's deeply loving. He wants to be loved. He wants to love. And, it was really, really rewarding to start him off as like kind of the salty bitch, which he always is. But, throughout the course of the season, through his relationship with Noah, you really do see his defenses go down and
Yeah.
him able to accept a form of love. I mean, granted, it's with his fucking brother's ex-boyfriend, so like not the best decision. But, Johnny's a hunk. Who could blame him?
Exactly. You know what I love about this version is that the characters, as you mentioned, are so complex. I mean, can you talk a little bit about your character and the family dynamic of all the people around you?
Yeah, I mean it's definitely the weirdest family you've ever encountered. um, the relationship with Brody is so interesting because
Yeah.
it feels so real to me because it's two people that so desperately want to be seen by each other,
Mhm.
but for a litany of reasons they just can't. And it reminds me of like this David Sedaris quote when he's talking about his relationship with his father, which is that he felt like he and his father were trapeze artists that were just missing each other each time they passed. And I felt like that was very true to Brody and Julian. And I think, eventually it kind of comes to a head and they have this blowout of all these past resentments they have towards each other, which was the best experience I had while writing for the show, because it was such a meaty fight scene and both people were right, which is always my rule for writing fight scenes, is that both characters need to be right. There are no heroes, there are no villains, just like real life, you know? So, you know, I just thought it was a very, very relatable aspect of family, which are these people that you want to understand they should understand you. They've been with you since birth, but because of your own shit, you get in the way of really loving each other. So that's just an interesting area to explore and live in.
There's some great new faces in this series. Can you talk about some of them?
Yeah, I mean, Steven is so good at casting. Like, I wasn't involved with casting at all, but I love that he, you know, a lot of these people you might be seeing for the first time.
Exactly.
And I mean, like, Devin is so incredible. Jesse's amazing. They're all amazing. And it's so funny because everyone is so specific in their energy. Like when I first when we all went out for a cast dinner, I was like, oh my God, we are all so wildly different from each other. This is actually, and it makes sense because, you know, the characters are so wildly different. And I think initially, I think that was something I was trepidatious about. I was like, oh, can we pull this off? Can we have chemistry? Because it's like, we're so different. And immediately when we started filming together, I was like, oh my God, like this works. We all have this chemistry, which to me is sort of mind-boggling. But I'm so glad because everyone just brings it, and everyone really, well, I think everyone, to do these roles specifically, you have to bring a level of vulnerability that I feel like maybe some actors would be too scared to do or not ready to do. And I think the commonality between all of us is that we are so game to just put all of ourselves into these parts. And I think it shows, you know what I mean? And I just think there's just such a mutual respect for each other's talents.
Had you ever met Kim Cattrall?
Had I ever met her before?
Yes.
Honey, oh my God, I love that you think I'm so glamorous that I would have a run-in with Kim Cattrall. Absolutely not, honey. I'm over here at Sweetgreen. No, Kim and I had never met. And I have to be honest, I was nervous. It was my first day of filming. My first day of filming was with her and Ed Bigley Jr. So I was like, okay, throw me in the fucking deep end. Obviously, Kim Cattrall was like formative to my like experience as a human. Like, I worshipped at the altar of Sex and the City, and particularly Samantha Jones. And I was definitely nervous even having to act alongside of her because she's such a genius. But I was so relieved because it was very quickly clear to me that she is so funny and she is so bright. And I mean, not all actors are, no shade. And honey, she is like I immediately felt at ease with her. And it's also a testament because like she also just knows that she has a presence. Like, I mean, she's an icon, you know what I mean? And she made me feel so comfortable immediately. And I just adore her.
That's great. I think you have about a minute less. Can you talk about the importance, Ryan, of having out performers, not only in front of the camera, but behind the camera?
Yeah, I think here's the deal too. Speaking to our chemistry, even though we are so different, queerness is our commonality. So immediately there is just an immediate ease we have with each other. There's immediate points of reference that we are clicked in. And, you know, I always made a point on Special to hire queer actors in queer roles, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, people would be like, well, it's called acting. Okay. Like, that's their job. And it's like, yes, sweetie baby. But when we live under the rule of capitalism, it's also like, I want to give queer people jobs. I want to give them opportunities. And if they like, why would I want to take away any dollars from a queer person? But also, sorry, being around queer people all the time is utopia. I mean, I have had to suffer through so many boring straight people or problematic straight people. Like, hanging around queer people all day, truly heaven on earth. And I feel like, honestly, it gives a level of authenticity to the project. Like, just because you know what I mean? That I just think it shows, you know?
That's great. Ryan, thank you so much.
Also, sex scenes are easier to shoot with a queer person.
Okay, great. Queer as Folk is on Peacock June 9th. It is excellent. Thank you so much, Ryan.
Thank you.
It was lovely talking to you.